Well, I go up to Capitol Hill and I go into Senator Moss's office, and everyone was nice and friendly. And he says, "What I'm going to do, Doug, is arrange a meeting for you in my office with Frank Turner. This is the best I can do for you. I can't take you any higher than that." Now, he is the chief of the Bureau of Public Roads. He's been employed for 42 years. He was the man that Dwight D. Eisenhower picked to take and implement his dream of the freeway system in the United States. Turner knew where every skeleton was, but by anyone. Knew all the problems, he knew everything. He had power, but he had leverage. Leverage, leverage, leverage. We talked about this last time. It's given me a lever long enough and I can move the world. And he had the lever. Well, so the meeting was held. And he came with about 6 guys into Moss's office. And there was Moss and myself and these 6 guys, the 8 of us, in this meeting. He spoke very monotone like that. Hardly raise or lower his voice at all. He looked straight at you. He has a very unassuming manner. He was all ears. Like says the poem, "Give every man thine ear, but few thy voice." That was Frank Turner. That's that line from Shakespeare. "Give every man thine ear, but few thy voice." So I was. I gave my pitch. We showed him the contract. Gave him the background of how this came about. All the steps. They never bat an eye. Then he said this, "Well, there's nothing that we can do about this because there is no funding." And Moss went, "I'll introduce a bill. Why don't we set up some pilot projects? I'll introduce a bill that only for just $5 million only. And we can experiment with this idea of Doug's in Utah." He said that'd be fine. Good idea. So this was Senate Bill SB 1422 or 1442. Yeah, 1442. In the hopper it goes. They know it'll never even see the light of day. They're smart. They put up with so many things. No one's going to take them off their course. Because they're going to remain in complete control all the way, and they're not going to give it up to a state of Utah, particularly to a little entrepreneur named Doug Snarr. They're not going to even play around with him. So what happened was, this went on for quite a while. Nothing. And I was just going up there every day and just seeing this, trying to see these various senators, and it was difficult and just couldn't get any traction. It was very, very difficult. I mean, it was just like hitting my head against a brick wall. But I had that little bill now. This little bill's in the hopper, so there's been some progress made, but not much to speak of. And then an article appeared. This was good fortune. I call this fate. This article appeared in Fortune magazine. It was titled, "We Can Afford a Better America." Now, written by Edmund K. Fualtemyer. He was the number 2 editor of Fortune magazine. Now that was, particularly in those days, extremely prestigious magazine. If it's what he writes, people are going to read. Now, in this article, It was a little thin paragraph. And he said, we should remove the signs pursuant to the highway beautification program, and we should do it by buying sign company by sign company. Now, that connected, because I had also told everyone that when it comes time to remove the signs, they got to do it by sign company by sign company. Otherwise, for example, take the state of Utah. There are 7,000 signs in Utah. Now, this 7,000 signs, they're owned by 27 companies. Now, which is bigger than my little caucus of 13. But anyway, so the idea is, why take and appraise and then condemn sign by sign 7,000 signs individually and separately? Just take a company by company and then appraise their signs and buy them all, and they take them all down at once. So that saves a lot of money. But the government's not interested in that, really. They're interested in power and control and to keep everybody paid who are in the bureau that they work in, called bureaucrats. But I had to talk to him. So I said to myself, if I called him on the phone it'll never get through. If I try and get an appointment with Edmund Fualtemyer, it'll never happen. So here's what I'm going to do: is I'm going to fly to New York, and then I'll call him from the airport. I'll get in a payphone, make a call. So I'll do this unannounced. I'll just do it with my fingers crossed. So I flew to New York City. I phoned, finally ran down. That was quite a process. I didn't have his number by any way, chance. But I just started with, I got to talk to Fortune magazine. That's how I got to it. I got his secretary finally on the phone. I said, I have flown from Salt Lake City, Utah, at 2,500 miles roughly, and I need to speak to Mr. Fualtemyer. Pursuant to his article, we can afford a better America. Can you do that? And she says, no, I can't. I'm sorry. He is on vacation. He will not be back for 2 weeks. I said, well, can't you get him on the phone wherever he might be? I assume a man in his position is not going to be too far away from a telephone. And she says, well, let me call you back. Where are you? I said, I'm in a phone booth in the Kennedy Airport. She says, I'll call you back. So I said, well, I'll stay right here and man this phone. So call me right back. She shortly did and said, well, he is home. He is painting his house. He has a house in Brooklyn. It's what's called the brownstone homes. These are very beautiful old homes. And he's in the process of restoring his right in Brooklyn. Very famous location. So I begged her. I said, listen, if you could just give me his phone number and let me talk to him, I'll be satisfied no matter what he says. But I just cannot take no for an answer. I just cannot leave and go back having not seen him. It's 2,500 miles. I've come to talk to him. I got to see him. And I begged her. I literally begged. And she gave me the number. I phoned. He answered. He said, Mr. Snarr, I told my secretary I'm in work clothes. I'm not able to see you. I am painting the inside of my house. I don't want to turn you down because I'm very flattered that you've come all this way because of my article. Now I went into it and says, I'm the reason that I'm here is because what you wrote. I'm the only guy in the country is trying to implement what you said in your article, and that is to remove signs, sign company by sign company. I've got a contract with the state of Utah that says they'll buy all my signs in Utah, company by company, but buy my signs first. And so here is the first implementation of your great idea. So I gave him all the credit possible, but I got to talk to you. We got to work together. I got to talk to you. I said, now, about this painting. I said, I grew up with a paintbrush in my hand. I mean, I painted signs. I got signs in 13 states. Started off painting signs. I know how to handle a brush. I know how to clean a brush. I know how to take care of a brush. Trust me, you're going to want to talk to me. Once I get there, just let me come to your house. And I just begged him. And he said, okay, you come. So he gave me the address. So I get in a cab, and we're going now to Brooklyn to meet with Edmund Fualtemyer. We got there. He's a really nice-looking guy, a little bit taller than I am, and very, very affable, very friendly. I mean, I was really impressed by this guy. Very smooth. Oh, my gosh, he's smooth. And so in I go. So I said, now tell me, what are you painting? He said, well, right now I'm on this particular door. And I'm trying to, get this door. You got all this molding around the door, and I'm trying to paint this molding. And I said, now show me how you hold the brush. And so he got the brush, and of course it was all wrong. And I said, well, let me just show you. Here's the way you do this. So then I got like this. I got it in my brush, and I said, now you watch this. I'm going to do this for you. I'll cut this whole line for you. And I went this way. See, he was going this way. That's wrong. It's this way you got to go, like that way. So the brush is this thick or wide, and like that. You go like that. You don't go like that. That's an amateur. You go like that. And I took that thing, and I cut that whole line from the top to the bottom. He just sitting there amazed. I said, now here's how you fill in. And so then I showed him exactly how you'd fill in. You don't just go like that. You got to know what you're doing. And so I showed him, and he just became so fascinated by this. And so after we had finished painting the molding around this one door, which I did the whole thing, this molding for him, now he's willing to talk. So then we sat down. He became a friend. And I learned that networking, you can't get very far without it. I learned the marvel of quid pro quo. You scratch my back, and I'll scratch yours. That's what it amounts to. He just says, I want to know your story. Tell me all about you. And he just relaxed, and I went through it. I mean, we're talking about a affair that went on for 3 hours in his home. And he really had an understanding, but he could answer the questions. And he said, tell me, what is your goal? I said, my goal is to be paid for what my signs are worth, and I can take that money and pay back the bank, whom I owe the money to, and maintain the honor of my name. That's my goal, number one, right there. He says, I admire that. So you've gone through all these loops and hoops to be able to make it good with your bank. Is that right? I said, precisely right. I care about the environment, but I'm not going to tell you that I love the environment more than I do my billboards. I'm not going to tell you that at all. But with my approach, I win, and the environmentalists win too. He said, well, I've always been against paying for the signs. I said, you don't want that. That's thievery. That's not the American way. We want to have a better America, not just how it looks, but in the process of obtaining it so it looks properly. We don't want to hurt anybody in the process. Furthermore, the Constitution guarantees just compensation. He agreed. He said, well, you have convinced me that signs must be paid for. Now, what about in the cities? I maintain, I said, that if a city, and it is up to the city fathers, if they deem it's best in their interest to leave signs, may say this: if you can build a hot dog stand, then there ought to be a spot there for a sign if they want it. But that's not my decision or your decision. That's the city fathers, and that'll vary from city to city. But when it gets beyond the city, then that's something different. But I think they should come down sign by sign. He says, you know what I think we should call this? The Snarr Plan for Billboard Blight. That's what you're doing. The Snarr Plan for Billboard Blight. So he gave me a moniker. I had a name. He said, that's what we're going to do. He said, well, you know what? I think that we ought to talk about having a little article in Fortune magazine on you. He said, when will you be back in town? I said, well, I can't come back until after your vacation. So he said, I appreciate that. So it was arranged, and I came, spent another afternoon with him, and an article was written and appeared in Fortune magazine. Now that gave me stature. That gave me standing. That gave me where someone better take notice a little bit, because now he has on his side Fortune magazine, which with that also means Time magazine. They're all of the same ilk or ownership. So that's what that means. So the ball game all of a sudden changed. I wasn't just a guy in a purple suit that day, or in an orange one, or a Kelly green one. I was someone with a certain degree of influence. Now, out of that came other people wanting to talk to me. I learned this, that in talking to these people, that I called it Washington, D.C.'s. They have their own language. So us greenhorns come in, and they're speaking in a different code than we are. It took about 2 years for me to figure this out. So yes means no. So they can take and say yes in a very, very polite way, and they've just shafted you. You go away feeling kind of warm and fuzzy, but they've got you right where they want you. Just let you just wait and lose patience, eat up money, eat up capital until it drains you, and finally you're left empty, literally empty, and you go back with the tail between your legs. That's the technique. So anyway, it took me about 2 years to break that code. But then I got a call from Frank Turner's right-hand man, who was in the original meeting with Moss, wanting to know, very slurpy and warm and friendly, congratulatory of, oh, you've got this article in Fortune, you've got this bill, SB 1442, you've really accomplished a lot. Wait, I'd like to talk to you. So it just so happened, this was purely coincidental. My wife happened to have been with me at the time. So I said, this is great. When can we do it? He said, let's do it tonight. So Carol agreed, because she's going to be going back to Salt Lake City. So we went out with him. He said, this is probably the nicest Chinese restaurant in Washington, D.C. He told me a story about Frank Turner, how much power he had, influence he had, how strong he was, How many people have attacked him during these 42 years building that freeway? People wanting it to go this way rather than to go that way. All the problems that he had. But no one got the best of him. He always won. And he then, his bottom line was, go home before you're ruined. Because you're not going to get this highway beautification bill on a pilot project basis ever passed through the Congress of the United States. And if you get through the authorization committee, which could be done, you'll never get through the appropriations committee, because we'll see to it. You don't have a chance. And I don't know, but I rose up against him. I thanked him for his integrity to tell me what he honestly thinks. But I said, it's Frank Turner against me. But in this case, he's good at building highways. I know something about the billboard, highway beautification, he doesn't have a clue on. I'm his man. But I will never go back. I'll be ruined first. But I don't believe you can ruin me, because I will not allow myself to be ruined. I'm sorry. I appreciate your integrity. Then he broke down and says, Doug, I want you to know how impressed I am with your character and what you are. I didn't feel right about taking you out tonight, but it was my job. Frank Turner asked me to take you out and to so convince you that you're going to go home and leave him alone. You're a little gnat to him, just flying around, just bothering him. But he said, Doug, you can count on me when you need certain information what's going on. I can tell you that in confidence. You've made me feel better about myself by how you have stood up to me and Frank Turner. So, I'm going to be a double agent. But I'm on your side. Now, Carol was with me. That was an astounding achievement, to go right into the center of power, the real center of power, and to get a key man who will give me information and stand up for me. I never dreamed that could ever happen. So now I got Moss, and now I got Frank Turner through his assistant, number one assistant, that I can count on. And I'll count on them until they betray me. But once a betrayal takes place, it's over with. Then I know where I stand. So the question is, I can only use him in the context of truth. It's got to be right. It's got to be consistent, and I got to have enough power with me, enough influence with me. They'll take notice.